Hello again, I'm Matthew Gore from lightandmatter.org, and if you've been following this channel for a while, this device should look familiar to you. It's the TourBox, a control surface for Photoshop and Lightroom and DaVinci Resolve and all sorts of other useful software, which I reviewed a year or two ago and I liked it, but I did have a few minor complaints. So when TourBox offered to let me test this out, I jumped at it. This is the new TourBox Elite, the updated and upgraded model of the TourBox that's on Kickstarter as we speak, already funded. So I'm going to show you what's different with the new model, I'll show you how I use it, and then I'll discuss any downsides that I've found in my brief time testing it. To start off with, the most obvious difference is that the old TourBox connects to your computer with a USB Type-C cable, and the new one gives you the option of using no cable at all. It can connect with Bluetooth, and consequently, it has a battery compartment for a couple of AA batteries on the bottom, along with a power switch and a pairing button. But the Bluetooth is optional, and you can also connect by using a USB cable if you prefer. One of the places the TourBox Elite is really helpful is when I'm editing on my Surface tablet. I generally edit with a pen tablet with my right hand, which is plugged into the Surface's lone USB port. With the TourBox Elite's Bluetooth connectivity, I don't need to carry around a USB hub and hope that the port can supply enough power to both devices. And if you saw my original TourBox review, you'll remember that my main complaint was about the feel of the two main dials, which felt a bit cheap and rattly for a professional device. Those have been replaced on the new model, and to start with, they don't rattle anymore, and they turn nice and smoothly. But more importantly, this center dial now has a press button built into it, which adds quick access to another command, and this flat dial, which now has a rubberized coating, also has a built-in button. And that is all of the physical differences between them on the outside. These differences in buttons are new to me, but they're not specific to the TourBox Elite. They're also in the TourBox Neo, which is the non-Bluetooth version of the TourBox that is currently on the market. But there is one final feature that is unique to the Elite that I should mention before I move on, and it's the introduction of haptic feedback. According to my contact at TourBox, this is not what the final implementation is going to be like, but this should give you an idea. When you rotate any of these three wheels, you'll hear a sort of clicking noise, and if your hand is on the TourBox, you can also feel it. These controls are not just noisy. They're activating a little motor inside the TourBox that produces feedback, and you can also turn it off if you want to. Just click this little icon in the TourBox console, and now it's completely silent. At the moment, to me this thing sounds for all the world like James Bond with a Geiger counter out on Crab Key, but I do really like the tactile feedback, so I'll be interested to see how it's implemented in the final product. In use, the TourBox Elite is similar enough to the old version that it was pretty easy for me to pick it up, and it can do the same sorts of things. For example, if I open this image in Photoshop again, and I roll this wheel, I can zoom in or out on the image, and if I click the wheels button, it sets the image back to fit the screen. And if I use the outer tall button here with my thumb, I can then drag the image around where I want it, which is really handy. And since I use it frequently, I've set this little round button to select the crop tool. I'll just crop this in a bit. And if I press the second round button, I get the healing brush tool in this case. So I can zoom in and move the image to where I need it, and then the center knob here adjusts the size of the brush for the active tool. Looks like there's a fleck of glitter here on the cheek that I can remove, and maybe I'll smooth some skin here on the chin. You get the idea. Once you get used to using the TourBox in your left hand, it can become really intuitive to use, and it significantly speeds up the retouching process. And one of the great new features of the TourBox software is the ability to set up macros, which are basically a longer sequence of actions that will all happen at the press of a button, like running an action in Photoshop. With this image open, if I press this center button, watch what happens. It has duplicated the layer, turned the top layer into a smart object, created a curves adjustment layer, and set it as a clipping layer. It has also selected the crop tool, so I can start by cropping the image. I won't get into all of the details here, and of course this is just a silly example, but if I open the Tourbox console here and look at the line for this button, you'll see that it says there's a macro there, and if I open that, you can see here this is just the sequence of commands that I've added. It's all very simple. It's just a list. And if you've made a bunch of macros, or if you're just afraid that you'll forget actions that you don't use very often, you can also create a menu in the console and add that to a button. So for example, if I click this button next to the knob, it brings up a list of macros, including the one that I just made, and I filled out the list a bit more with some placeholders, but I can scroll through all of those with the knob, and of course apply whichever one I want. But my favorite way to use the Tourbox is actually for editing RAW files in Adobe Camera Raw. The Tourbox does have a preset already made for use in Lightroom if you prefer that, but since I use Camera Raw, let me show you how I set it up. I'll open this photo of a man that I photographed outside of the Gwalior Fort in India. Notice that if I try to use the Tourbox like I did in Photoshop, nothing happens. So I'll open up the Tourbox console, and if you take a look over here on the left, you'll see the list of programs that I have set up. I've removed everything except for Photoshop at the moment. I'll just go up here and press the plus button to add a new preset. And since Camera Raw isn't one of the programs with native support, I'll just use the custom preset option and click OK, and here it is in the list now. But it says that it isn't linked, so we click on that button, and it brings up a list of programs that are open that I can link it with, and of course I'll choose Bridge. I want to set up the zoom function on this wheel, so I can select that in the menu, and then I click the menu item to open the options. To zoom out, the keyboard shortcut is Ctrl-. So just press those keys and then click OK. And on the same line, there's another bit of text that says not set. So I'll click on that to set the zoom in function. That's just Ctrl+. So I'll do that and click OK. Now if I go back to Camera Raw and my old man, and I roll this wheel, it zooms the image in and out. It's really nice and responsive too. I want to set the wheel button to fit the image to the window, so that keyboard shortcut is Ctrl-0. So I'll press those keys, and that is all set. And finally here, I'm going to set the center knob to adjust whatever develop value is selected. So I'll do the same thing for it, but the keyboard shortcuts are just the up and down arrows. If you want to reverse the direction, you can just click this center button to switch them. Oh, and one more thing. I'm going to set up this center knob button to advance to the next value. That's the tab button, and to return to the previous value, it's shift tab. So I'll set this tall button to work as shift. With all of that set, I can just go down the line making adjustments with my hand never leaving the Tourbox knob. And while I enjoy editing photos with the Tourbox, it has become completely indispensable to me for editing videos. Again, the Tourbox doesn't come with a preset specifically for DaVinci Resolve, but the Tourbox website does have a collection of user-submitted presets for all sorts of programs. And I downloaded this one from a YouTuber called Tom Antos, but I've modified it for the Tourbox Elite and to match my own preferences. So you can see here with a project open in Resolve, I can use the knob on the Tourbox to zoom in and out on the timeline, which is amazingly helpful for such a simple thing. And if I use the main dial, I can scrub forward or backward on the timeline. I can roll the wheel forward to start playing the video forward at standard speed or faster speeds, and I can press that center button to stop it. And now, if I want to select all of the clips to the right of my playhead, I can press the round button on the right, and if I want to select all of the ones to the left, I can press the round button on the left. And if I want to make a cut in my footage, I can just click on this button with my thumb, and if I change my mind, I've got the undo button right next to it. I use the Tour Box constantly when I'm editing my YouTube videos. Incidentally, if you want to change the response speed of these wheels, you can now adjust that with a setting in the console. Looks like there are currently 3 levels of control: a high, medium, and off. And since I'm talking about video clips, I should mention that I've also set up the Tour Box to work with my Windows Media Player. So if I open up a clip from Windows just to preview, I can click a button to make it full screen. I can scrub forward and back, and I can move forward or back, frame by frame, if I want to, using these little buttons. And the center knob controls the volume. I use this if I'm watching movies on my computer too. I also have reviewed a Loupedeck CT, which is a really flashy looking and highly capable controller, but because it has so many buttons and knobs, it actually takes more attention to use it, which slows me down and sort of defeats the purpose of the thing. A big part of what makes the Tour Box so powerful for me is its simplicity. So do I have any complaints about the new Tour Box Elite? Only one, really, and that is the removal of the expansion USB port, which, on my desktop, I've been using to plug into my monitor calibrator. I understand, of course, that it would be a problem if the device were running on Bluetooth, but I'll still miss it. Otherwise, my only real complaints are with the pre-production software, and they're all things that the manufacturer knows about and says that they'll fix in the official release. But the big question is, of course, would I pay the extra money for the Elite version of the Tour Box rather than buying the Neo? At the Kickstarter price right now, I would definitely buy the Elite. It's only a difference of about $10, and the Bluetooth alone is well worth that. After the Kickstarter period is over, the standard retail price is listed as $268, about $100 more than the Neo. Who knows whether the retail price will really be that high, but if it is, Bluetooth is probably not important enough to my workflow for it to be worth that cost. And it's too early to judge the haptic feedback. Your needs may be different than mine though, and if you plan on using the Tour Box for mobile editing, it may be just what you need and worth every penny. Either way, I'd buy it at the Kickstarter price if you can. And if you feel like supporting my channel here, I've posted a link to the Kickstarter below, and using that will help me make more videos like this in the future. And that's it for now. I'll be back soon with a video about the Slipod Pro, which is pretty awesome too, and of course I'm working on a couple of lens reviews. If you have any questions about the Tour Box Elite, just let me know down in the comment section below. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, this is a good time to do it. Stay safe out there, everyone, and I'll see you next time.